Welcome to the CQC video training series. This is a spot topic video on dynamic content generation. In this video, we're going to look at the dynamic content generation capabilities of the user interface system. And this functionality allows you to create certain types of user interfaces far more easily than you would be able to otherwise. A common scenario is that you would like to have a scrollable list of lights that you can scroll over to a particular one and control it, or a scrollable list of your thermostats and so forth. Now you could create such a thing manually easily enough. You would just set up a set of widgets for a single light, and maybe have an indicator for off and on, and have some buttons for off and on control, and a label under it perhaps for this is the name of the light. And once you got those working and looking the way you want, you would copy and paste them to the right, change the field name, copy and paste them to the right, change the field name, etc. And that would work perfectly well. You'd create a long template, and then you would just load that into an overlay, and it would allow you to scroll the contents back and forth. So it would work fine, but it's quite tedious. And the big problem, of course, is that if you ever wanted to change that layout and you now have 25 of them, you have to make that change 25 times, and it's quite annoying. So the overlay widget actually allows you to dynamically generate this sort of repeated copy and paste and search and replace operation on the fly. And it's done dynamically, which means at viewing time, not at design time. So I'll just demonstrate it here. It's probably easier to show than to tell. And in order to save time in this video, I've pre-generated some templates. And what I have here is a main template, and it has an overlay whose widget ID is light list. And this is where we're going to generate some content. And it needs a layout template to tell it what to do for each of the blocks that it copies and pastes. So we've created a layout template here. And basically this layout template just has whatever we want to generate for each light. In our case, it could be a thermostat, whatever it might be, AV receiver. And it's important that each of them be set up to deal with a particular field, because what we're going to do is tell it to dynamically search and replace. So each of them has to be set up for the same field, so that when we do the search and replace, we'll always find the correct field and replace it. So in this case, I've got just a Boolean field image here, which will show on and off for on state, depending on the state of the field it's associated with. And I've just picked the first light and the first light switch in the lighting driver. And we have off and on buttons, and all they do is just turn that particular field off and on, set it to true or false. And I have a static text widget here, and this one is not associated with a field, and this is for generating a label. And if we give it an ID of current name, that tells the dynamic content generation code to use this as a label. So we can easily generate a label under each of the lights. All right, so let's give this a try here. Actually, first though, let's look at how we make this happen. If we go to the template itself, the main one, and we look at its actions in the load here, so this runs when the template loads, we're calling this dynamic overload command on the light list overlay. So we're calling this overlay here. And we have to give it the layout template that we created. And we have to give it a list of either fields or monikers and a list of names. In this case, we're doing fields. You either have to do fields or monikers. And I'll get into why you do monikers later. And they have to be the same size, because it will pick one from each list for each time that it replicates. Except that this one has a first entry, and this is the value to replace. So this has to be the field that we set up the layout template to use. So it will find this one, and then it will start replacing it with each of these subsequent lights in the list here. And then for each of those, it will grab one of these names to use. And we tell it to generate the content horizontally, since our overlay is horizontal, right? So let's just bring up the interface template viewer here, and we'll look at that. This is just a previous template from another video here. And you can see that it has generated those, and it wasn't obvious in there, but I put a line to the right side of the layout template to separate them. Obviously, this is not the most beautiful layout or anything, but you can see that it works and can turn them on. So very convenient. Now that's very useful, and you might want to use that. But another option that you can do is to actually get the fields from the driver itself, so that it just grabs all of the lights. And if you were to change the lights that you have configured for that driver at some point later, then this would just pick that up, because these are generated as you view them. So it's not something that's fixed at design time. So let's do that. So if we go back to the main template here, and we'll just change how we load that overlay. I'm going to just, I'll copy and paste this, and then I'll disable this original one here. And what we want to do is make a call to the driver to get a list of all of its light switches. And we can do that by calling command devices, and it's get sim fields, which means get semantic fields. And it goes by semantic field type. So the driver will be lighting, and the semantic field type we want is light switches. And then it will fill in those two lists that we need to pass in. It will fill those in for us into variables. So I'll do this one called a local variable called fields, and the next we'll have a local variable called names. So now what we can do is replace our manual list with those. We still need this first entry here in the field list because we still need to search and replace. But this we can replace with the contents of the fields variable, and this one we can completely replace with the names variable. So if we got that right, we should be able to now go load that template again. Save this, and let's bring that back up, and let me make sure I don't have caching on, and I'll do a reload. And now you can see that it actually has loaded all of the lights, right? And now the gotcha here, of course, is that it doesn't have human readable labels for them. All it knows is the field names. If you get these field names done well, then they will work very well here. If you actually name your light such that you use an underscore between the major parts of it, it will replace those with spaces. So if this had been kitchen underscore wall, then it would be kitchen space wall, which would work very well. So that's it. It makes it very easy to create dynamic content that will adjust. So, if you change your lighting driver, it doesn't really make any difference. It will just pick them up every time that the user loads this template. It will pick up whatever is there at this point. And just to quickly go back, we noticed that we could also have monikers instead of fields. And the reason you would do that would be that you're doing something like a list of, say, thermostats. In that case, the field names would all be the same, but only the moniker for the thermostat would change. So in that case, you want to replace just the moniker instead of the whole field. So basically the same concept, but in this case, we replaced field names. In that case, you would replace just the moniker part, and you would leave the field names alone. So that's it. That is dynamic content generation. As you can imagine, this could be very useful and save you a lot of time. So make use of it and see if it works for you.